This is The Curious Gamer, a show about the culture, design, and joy of games. I'm Devin Pulaski. There's this romantic notion that's been around for hundreds of years in many places around the world. Maybe some of you experience this feeling often, but even if you haven't, it's definitely familiar. You can understand it, even if you haven't lived it yourself. It's that feeling one gets from a cafe, a coffee shop, a place you go not to fill your stomach, but to nourish your soul, where a cup of something warm and delicious anchors you to the present. As you nurse your drink, perhaps you'll tend to your thoughts in solitude, maybe become engrossed in some work, or maybe you'll pass the time with kindred spirits, where warm drinks kindle deep conversations. On January 29th, 2020, a video game was released that aimed to capture this idyllic cafe experience. This game is called Coffee Talk. In less than a month since its release, Coffee Talk has struck a chord with many fans around the world for its relaxing ambiance, compelling storytelling, and meditative visuals and music. It would be easy to assume that this game was made by a bunch of coffee-drinking fanatics who are based out of somewhere like Seattle, since that's where the game's setting takes place. But when I started researching this game, and the people who made it, I found that this was actually far from the truth. So I just want to make sure I've got it right. Is it Toge or Toge?
It's actually Toge. I kind of love seeing other people mispronounce the name because it's kind of funny.
Because it's Indonesian words, right?
Yeah, it's Indonesian for bean sprout. Bean sprout, we call it Toge in Indonesia. And for short, people say Toge. Apparently in Japan, Toge also means, I think it's either spike or a mountain pass or something like that. Some people thought we were Japanese game development company.
You're listening to 3 team members from Toge Productions, a video game development studio based out of Indonesia. First, there's Chris.
My name is Chris Anthony, and I'm the founder and CEO of Toge Productions. In Coffee Talk, I'm involved as co-writer and also the editor for the story.
And then there's Dio.
My name is Dio, and I am a 2D artist at Toge Productions, and I'm the lead artist / art director, I guess, in Coffee Talk.
Finally, there's AJ, who also goes by Andrew.
My name is AJ. I'm the project manager and also the composer for the soundtracks for Coffee Talk.
Their game, Coffee Talk, falls under a video game genre called visual novels. Visual novels place a greater focus on their atmosphere, characters, and stories, and less emphasis on action and complex game mechanics. In fact, there is very little gameplay at all in Coffee Talk, making it extremely easy for anyone to pick up, even if you don't regularly play video games. The game takes place in a coffee shop based in Seattle. Every single night, it is raining outside. You spend the entire game from behind the counter of the shop and view the world from a first-person perspective of the protagonist. You get to name your character, but unlike many narrative video games, you don't get to make choices on what to say at key moments. Your only interaction is to craft various coffee and tea-based drinks for the diverse patrons that walk through the door. And optionally, you can draw your own custom latte art on the drinks and snap a picture of it to share. But when I say diverse patrons, that's an understatement. And that's because Coffee Talk takes place in an alternate reality of Seattle, where creatures such as elves, orcs, vampires, mermaids, and werewolves, among other mythical beings, roam the streets alongside human beings. Most of these creatures look and talk like humans, save for some obvious standout characteristic, like horns, or maybe green skin, or pointy ears, or a tail. But other than that, each person that comes through the coffee shop is like any human being in real-life Seattle in 2020. Each character has a recurring drama, and they'll share the latest developments with you each time they drop by the shop. As you get to know that person's struggles, you also get to know what kinds of drinks they like. Pretty soon, they'll be asking you to make the usual. The game tackles a broad expanse of issues prevalent in our time, from racism to sexism to relationship and family troubles to being stressed from overwork. I asked the Toge team how Coffee Talk was conceived and what led to its eventual production.
So back in, I think it was 2017, we had like an internal game jam. From that game jam, we have like 5 ideas, and one of them was Coffee Talk.
A game jam. So, if you're familiar with what a 24-hour film festival is, then you'll get the general idea of a game jam. It's when video game developers come together for a couple of days or weeks and make an entire little video game during that short time, or at least a prototype of one. The idea isn't to make something extremely polished, complex, or full of content. Instead, it's to experiment and test out new ideas. Toge Productions hosts an annual game jam for their company to keep their team fresh.
The game director, he was our marketing manager at the time, and he wanted to replicate the feeling of watching the rain while drinking something, like a warm drink and having conversations.
The game's director is named Mohammed Fahmy. In a blog post, Fahmy recalls the feeling he had one night when he was writing a press release and enjoying a green tea latte to calm his senses and relax his body. As he took a sip and stared out the window, he wished there was a game that simulated this feeling. Eventually, he came to the conclusion, since there aren't really many games like this, he could just make the game himself. So he built his prototype at the game jam, and the rest is history. But there's another direct influence for Coffee Talk. See, the coffee shop in the game only opens at midnight, and you experience the game one night at a time as the colorful cast of characters comes by to visit and share their stories. If this sounds familiar, it's because it draws some inspiration from a popular show on Netflix. This show is called Midnight Diner, a Japanese TV series that's become popular in the US and other parts of the world. The show's short episodes take place at a style of diner known as izakaya. It's a cozy place that can only seat a handful of people as they sit around the 3 sides of a small square table. The patrons order whatever food they want from the chef, provided he has the ingredients on hand.
一日が終わり、人々が家路へと急ぐ頃、俺の一日は始まる。
The chef is a kind but mysterious person who is only referred to as Master. Each episode of Midnight Diner typically revolves around a single character and a signature dish that they like to order. The episode follows this character as they deal with a particular drama in their life. By the episode's end, the character discovers a resolution for their problems, often with a philosophical lesson to come with it. The show is beloved for its charming cast of oddball characters, and there is an intimate, soothing, and conversational atmosphere that comes from the cozy izakaya diner and the calm acoustic soundtrack.
メニューはこれだけ。あとは勝手に注文してくれりゃ、できるもんなら作るよってのが俺の営業方針さ。
So if you've watched and enjoyed Midnight Diner, there's a good chance you'll feel right at home playing Coffee Talk, a goal that Fahmy was explicitly aiming for.
Yeah, he keeps telling us like, oh, you should watch Midnight Diner, and that is like one of the biggest influences in the game. That's how we draw, how we portray how the characters, interact with the barista. It's kind of like how the patrons of Midnight Diner interact with Master. The funny thing is like, in Coffee Talk development team, the only person who really loves cafe and coffee and stuff like that is Fahmy. The rest of the team, we don't really drink coffee.
I found this interesting. A game about coffee was made by many people who don't even really like it. I asked how they went about developing the game's art style and how they settled on Seattle as the game's setting.
Yeah, like one of the main reason is because we want to have rain every day. Like the game has to be raining all the time. because that's like the main mood and vibe. So we thought like we tried like searching like what is the city that rains the most, and Seattle pops up, I guess. Yeah, and Starbucks was from Seattle, so that's like okay, that's that's the city of choice, I guess.
Yeah, we took a lot of Google images and we used Google Street to see, oh, this is Seattle, how Seattle like. And I used to have one wallpaper in my desktop that contains like 30 images about of the interior and exterior of a cafe, and it was all in brownish, reddish and brown mood.
There's more to the art style of Coffee Talk than drawing inspiration from real life. The game channels a pixel art aesthetic, which is the colorful, blocky look of retro video games, but updated with modern appeal and style. It also draws from classic games like Policenauts and City Hunter, from an era of Japanese games called PC 98, which are iconic for their anime-influenced art. The coffee shop in Coffee Talk does a great job of emulating that brown and warm color palette that Dio discovered from his research. The ambiance is inviting, and there's something calming about the infinite rainfall that you can see through the windows as people walk by the nighttime streets. On top of that, the game's pixelated coffee and tea drinks look absolutely delicious. Every time I hear the game's sound effects as you craft a new drink and see the delicious-looking pixel art, I suddenly have a craving to make a fresh brew of my own. But there is one aspect of Coffee Talk that I think ties the entire experience together, elevating the art, atmosphere, and stories into something truly special. And that is the game's music, composed by AJ, the music you've been hearing throughout this episode. The game's music follows an extremely popular trend from the last few years. It's called lo-fi hip-hop, or chill hop. You can find countless YouTube videos and even entire channels dedicated to this genre of music, often with titles like Lo-fi hip-hop beats to relax and study to. The videos are often set to a looping short animation of a student in their bedroom at their desk as they're studying. The music is a bit of a fusion between classic hip-hop beats and smooth jazz, often recalling samples from popular anime and video games. Listening to Coffee Talk's soundtrack, it'd be easy to assume that this music is AJ's specialty and that he's made tons of it before. But this actually isn't the case at all.
So this is the first time I tried to make a lo-fi chill hop. I'm really glad that when people listen to my music and they really love it, I feel glad about that.
I still remember that me and Fahmi introducing him to lo-fi music, and because I listen to lo-fi a lot, and of course Fahmi did too. Andrew, AJ was okay. I'll try about it, and the first sample was boom. It was so great, and like, oh, he did it. and we were so happy that we didn't spend any money to other artists. And, and Andrew nailed it so perfectly.
Yeah.
The lo-fi genre has amassed millions of fans. It has this quality that can summon a sense of immediate calm. It's a sort of holistic antidote to the stress and anxiety many young people feel today. Calmness, relaxation, the simple joy of a warm drink and good company. These are all elements that make Coffee Talk an attractive experience to indulge in. While many people enjoy games that are endlessly complex and full of stimulating non-stop action, sometimes a game is enjoyable precisely because the gameplay is so simple.
I think like there's been like a growing trend in more relaxing games, because I think probably because like today compared to maybe 10 or 20 years ago, like we are super like connected, and like everything's so fast paced, and you feel like everything's like so hectic with work, with social media and everything. Probably people feel like they're bombarded all the time. So maybe a game like Coffee Talk feels like an escape where they can just relax and chill, listen to the music, and just like read stories, like hanging out with your friends and gossiping. Probably that's kind of like the feeling. Like myself included, like I don't really have friends outside of work, so I don't have any friends to to hang out and to gossip with. And Coffee Talk kind of like filled that gap for me, and probably maybe a lot of people out there feel the same way. We're happy that Coffee Talk could fill in those gaps and bring them some peace and quiet for a change. It's been like a great achievement, especially for Indonesian game developers. We've always dreamed of releasing our own our games to the console and having that box where you see your game in a box, a physical box. Finally having that dream realized is like, it's been amazing.
Games have been a part of Chris's, Dio's, and AJ's lives since they were kids. They grew up playing games like Super Mario Bros., Final Fantasy, Counter-Strike, StarCraft and Warcraft, and Age of Empires, among others. But all these titles are notably developed by video game companies in Japan or the United States. There wasn't an obvious path to game development in Indonesia, which is what led Chris to starting Toge Productions in the first place, and slowly bringing aboard friends like AJ and Dio to the team, each lending gifts like art and music to the company's growing roster of games. Beyond telling stories and delivering interactive experiences, games have something else to offer. They are a vessel to the culture shared by the people that created the game. Many people around the world, like myself, have grown up enjoying a plethora of games from Japan. As a result, I've developed a sense of familiarity with Japanese culture, little details observed and enjoyed from countless games. This interest and appreciation can transcend beyond games to enjoying Japan's films and animation, the food, and much more. I have made friends who live in Japan and visited the country for a long vacation. For me, and many others, Japanese video games were a gateway to Japanese culture. And this is something that the team at Toge Productions understands, and they want to channel this power with every game they produce. They're collaborating with other Indonesian game studios to help develop new games. One of these games is called A Space for the Unbound, in collaboration with Mojikan Studios. You play as a high schooler in rural Indonesia set in the 90s. It has a supernatural twist, but it largely centers on what it's like growing up in Indonesia and the challenges someone can face in high school. Another game they're working on is called When the Past Was Around, which is a point-and-click adventure game about losing someone, letting go, and moving on.
Basically, that's what we want to do with Space for the Unbound, and like in Coffee Talk. For example, in Coffee Talk, we try to add in like Southeast Asian influences, like in the drinks, like Teh Tarik and STMJ, which are local drinks in Southeast Asia. Yeah, basically we try to kind of like bring our culture to the world. We want people to know about Indonesia, about the cultures, the drinks, and be interested. And hopefully someday, you come visit us. That's what we want to do. So yeah, basically we try to bring Indonesian games to the global market. That's like one of the goals of Toge Productions. We feel like there's a lot of cool stuff being made in Indonesia, and we have a lot of great talent, but we don't have access to like funding, and we don't have access to like media or like the journalists for coverage. And it's very hard for a lot of indie developers in Indonesia to market their games and gain visibility. And that's where we come in, and we want to basically try to help them get visibility and also help them in developing the game, giving them consultation, helping them with funding, and also like access to dev kits and stuff like that to bring them their games to consoles and other platforms.
One of my biggest goals with this show is to share games that people who don't normally play games can easily pick up and enjoy. Coffee Talk is perfect for this because of how simple and accessible it is. The game is inexpensive and won't take up too much of your time, lasting around 3 to 4 hours. You can get it for PC, Mac, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Nintendo Switch. And one more thing. While Toge is busy at work with new games, it looks like work on Coffee Talk isn't quite yet finished.
You want to talk about this? So yeah, we decided to continue adding DLC.
We have planned about adding DLC and stories and maybe more ingredients, and so yeah,
Maybe more engaging stories with more branches.
and this is the first time we spill it outside Toge Productions, right?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
I guess it's okay. I don't know.
There you have it. Coffee Talk is getting DLC. DLC is short for downloadable content, which adds gameplay, stories, and other features to games after their initial release. And it looks like the stories in Coffee Talk are not all yet told. And also, it looks like I'm the first outside of Toge to learn this. Yep, a curious gamer got the inside scoop. Looks like I'm big time now. I look forward to whatever Toge Productions works on next. And I look forward to playing other games made by other Indonesian studios. Outside of visiting a real place, games are one of the best ways to dive into the stories and people of a different culture, from alternate reality Seattle to Indonesia and beyond. The Curious Gamer was written, produced, and voiced by me, Devin Pulaski. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, or watch the show on YouTube. And it really, really helps the show out if you could leave a review or share it with a friend who you think would be interested. Also, if you want to continue to chill out and relax to AJ's music, you can listen to it on Spotify, or you can support the music directly by buying the soundtrack off of the popular digital game store called Steam. And you can listen to and buy the soundtrack on other platforms as well. Thank you for listening. And no matter what you're doing, whether you're feeling up or down, remember this: you're never too old to enjoy your life and play.